All right, welcome to the Unit 4 practice test review. I am Mr. Q, and let's look at some answers. Function f defines the amount of money made in a fundraiser as a function of how many tickets are sold. What are the independent variables and dependent variables, the IVs and the DVs? So the amount of money made is a function of how many tickets are sold. So the amount of money made is our dependent variable, and it is a function of our independent variable. So the independent variable is how many tickets are sold, and then the dependent variable is how much money is made. Function f gives the amount of money made in a fundraiser as a function of how many tickets are sold. So same idea here. What is the meaning of f of 200 equals 500? So it is a function of the number of tickets. So we have 200 tickets, and the amount of money made is dependent on the amount of tickets. So if you sell 200 tickets, it looks like you make $500. And that would be A. If 200 tickets are sold, $500 are made. Number 3, if g of x equals negative 2x minus 9 and h of x equals 0.5x minus 25, which one is larger, g of 5 or h of 5? So notice how the 5s are in here for the x's. So we are going to just do the same thing and plug in some 5s. G of 5 equals negative 2 times 5 minus 9. If we look at that in the calculator, negative 2 times 5 minus 9 is negative 19. And now we have to look at h of 5. H of 5 is going to be 0.5 times 5 minus 25. So 0.5, make sure I get that right. 0.5 times 5 minus 25 is negative 22.5. And between those two negative numbers, g of 5, negative 19, is bigger than negative 22.5. So g of 5 is the biggest one. Number 4, consider this pattern. How is this pattern growing? Explain it in at least 2 ways. Well, one of the things you can do is make a little chart. Your figure number versus the total number of blocks. So, just following what they have here, figure 1 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blocks. Figure 2 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 blocks. Figure 3 has 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 blocks. And figure 4 has 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 blocks. That is one of the ways of looking at the pattern in number 4. If you want to, you can create an equation out of this as well. So I'm going to pick 2 pairs of values. I'm going to pick 1, 7, and I'm going to pick 2, 11, and use the slope formula with that. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, or 11 minus 7 over 2 minus 1. That's 4 over 1, which is just 4. Y equals 4x plus b. So I'll just pick another one of these pairs. I'll just pick 1, 7 again. So 7 equals 4 times 1 plus b, or 7 equals 4 plus b. So if I subtract 4, then we find that b has to be 3. So now we can create an equation where f of x instead of y equals 4x plus 3. Or you could say it in words. In words, we start with 7 blocks, and we add 4 each step. So there we go. There's a few different ways: a chart, an equation, and a graph. Oh, sorry, and words. Number 5. Kevin is practicing for a weightlifting competition. He starts his training program by lifting 25 pounds, and each week he adds 2.5 pounds to his weight set. So if he's at 27.5 here, well, in week 0, they told us he started with 25. And if we keep going to X, well, depends on how many weeks he goes, because he adds 2.5 pounds for every week for X weeks, plus he started with 25 pounds. What does the function P of 15 mean here? So P of 15 is our input number. Input is usually on the left. Output, or dependent variable, is usually on the right. So P of 15 means that this is Kevin's 15th week of training. If P of t equals 37.5, 37.5 is an output, so that would mean Kevin is lifting 37.5 pounds. And when is P of t equals 37.5 true? Well, we're going to look at what happens if 2.5x plus 25 equals 37.5. Again, over here, if I subtract 37.5 minus 25, then I get 2.5x equals 12.5. And if I divide both sides of this equation by 2.5, then we find that Kevin will start lifting 37.5 pounds in his 5th week. That's the end of recess. Or sorry, not recess, brunch. There we go. Function V gives the volume of water in liters in a water cooler as a function of time t in minutes. This graph represents function V, so we're just trying to give you information here. Match each of these features of the graph with its significance. So V of 0 tells me that my input number is 0. If my x value is 0, that is the y-intercept. If x is 0, that is the y-intercept. And actually, on the other end of that, if the y value is 0, if the whole thing equals 0, that has to be, by definition, the x-intercept. I might have said v of 4 equals 0. We're trying to make this a little bit less confusing between v of 4 and v of x equals 0, because I can see that 4, 0 on the graph is the lowest point, and that makes it the minimum value. Maybe it's a little bit easier to see that v of x equals 11. Well, that's the highest point up on the graph. That makes it our maximum value. Number 7. Courtney parked her car at a lake. Starting from her car, she went on a hike to a lake where she rested for a few minutes. Then she quickly ran away from a snapping turtle before slowing her pace and walking to her campsite that's about 50 meters away from her car. Which graph represents Courtney's journey? Okay, so what do I know here? I know that she starts from her car, so if she starts from her car, we usually try to start in the corner, at 0, 0, at the origin. So A looks like it's out because that means she's starting away from her car. So does D, because again, she's starting away from her car. So it's going to be between B and C here. She went on a hike to the lake where she rested for a few minutes. Well, it didn't say she went back to her car. If she went back to her car, then she would come back down to the 0 level. So if she went and then had to go back, that would be C. but that's not what they said. They said she went a little bit and then rested. So far, B's looking good. And then she quickly ran away from a snapping turtle. That's a pretty sharp slope, and then she ran away. But then she slowed her pace. Now we have a lower slope. So B is our correct answer, because she starts at 0, 0, her car. She rests for a little bit. That's the flat line. She has a sharp slope where she runs away, and then a lesser slope where she's... Sorry about that. There was a little tech mix up there, but you got all the answers. This graph shows the distance in meters from the starting point of two racers. The finish line is 110 meters from the start. Imagine you are the radio commentator for the race. Describe the play-by-play of the race and make it exciting. Make sure to include specific details so that your radio listeners can understand all of the action. So it looks like runner B takes a quick start because the B line is higher up than the A line. But at 3 seconds, once they reach 50 meters right there, but only 3 seconds in, at 50 meters, runner B stops. Probably to tie their shoe or something. At that point, when they stop to tie their shoe, it looks like they'll stop until 8 seconds. But runner A keeps going at a steady pace. So runner A takes the lead at about 4.5 seconds. At 8 seconds, runner B starts again. But at 8 seconds, runner A has already reached about 85 meters. Looks like A slows down a little bit, but they hit the 110 mark at 13 seconds. And it takes runner B 18 seconds to finish. Something like that. Number 9, Gisela is filling her fish tank. The following graph shows the height of the water in the aquarium as a function of time in minutes. How does the average rate of change of the height of the water from 3 to 5 minutes compare to the average rate of change from 0 to 3 minutes? So from 3 minutes to 5 minutes, we start at 3,10. We end at 5,30. So the average rate of change is the same thing as the slope. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I'm going to say that is 30 minus 10 over 5 minus 3. 30 minus 10 is 20. 5 minus 3 is 2. So that would be 10 centimeters per minute. From 0 to 3, 0 minutes, we were at 0 seconds, or 0 centimeters. And we saw that at 3 minutes, we have 10 centimeters. So the slope here is going to be 10 minus 0 over 3 minus 0, or 10 divided by 3. Let's get that as a fraction, or as a decimal here. 10 divided by 3 is 3.33333 centimeters per minute. So it was faster from 3 to 5 minutes than it was from 0 to 3 minutes, because 10 centimeters per minute is faster than 3.33 centimeters per minute. Number 10. Mallory is selling magazine subscriptions for a school fundraiser. For every subscription she sells, she makes $7. Here's a graph of the number of magazine subscriptions that Mallory sold each week over 6 weeks. Based on the graph and the situation, which domain and range makes sense? So domain is what X values. X values looks like weeks. And if we're counting weeks, yeah, we can kind of have 5.5 weeks, but we're just making a count at the end of each week. So it should probably be whole numbers. And we're only doing it over 6 weeks. So weeks 0 through 6. Although 0 doesn't really make sense because we start counting at the end of week 1. The range, then, is the number of magazine subscriptions sold. And it doesn't really make sense to sell a fraction of magazines. So it looks like on week 5 she didn't sell any, but on week 2 she sold 8. So it looks like the domain, all the whole numbers from 1 to 6, and the magazines 0 through 8, but only whole numbers. So using the same graph and same situation, pick a number that would not be appropriate in the range and explain why it's not in the range. Sorry for that typo there. Anything with a decimal. So 2.5 is not allowed in the range because you can't sell half a magazine subscription. And that's number 11. Last few. Number 12. The graph and the table show the monthly cost for 2 different dog sitting services. Which equations match the cost of service for A of X or B of X as a function of the number of days of dog sitting? Circle your answers. 1 for A, 1 for B. So let's see here. It looks like for A, every extra day we're adding 20 as our total cost. And it looks like we start out with an extra 10 if I started with 0, if I subtracted 20 there. So it looks like A must be the 20x plus 10. B starts at 0, 0. So that means that whatever I'm doing must have a plus 0 at the end. Plus 25 is more than plus 0, plus 30 is more than plus 0, so B of X must be just the 25x. So imagine you're going to be gone for a long time, more than 1 week. Which dog sitting service should you use? So let's say I'm gone for 8 days. A of 8 would be 20 times 8 plus 10. 20 times 8 plus 10 is $170 that would cost me. B of 8 would cost me $25 per day times 8 days. So 25 times 8 is $200 it would cost me. So it looks like service A will save me money. And lastly, here's a graph that has no labels. Tell any story that could match this graph. Please label your axes so you know how clear the description is. So let's say that this is something like time, and maybe something like distance. So let's say that Mr. Q starts his day at home. Let's say it's a weekend day for me, so I sleep in a little bit and just stay at home. Once I wake up, maybe I realize I'm a little bit late for brunch. So I drive very quickly away from my house. But then I think I forgot my wallet, so I turn back. But then at a red light, I find my wallet in my jacket instead of in my regular pocket,